I don't know what happens to the Toronto Maple Leafs if they lose to the Ottawa Senators. It's the provincial rival.
Jeff Marek, the Sheet, the legend. What's up, my friend?
A lot of things getting close and close and close and close here to the most wonderful time of the year. If it weren't already co-opted by the Disney Corporation, we would say that about the playoffs. How are you guys? Bean, Blackie, what's going on?
Quite great. We always love chatting with you, and you famously are Canadian, so let's discuss this Battle of Ontario that we got here. I'm excited just because I believe in the Leafs this year, but as a Canadian and as someone who watches these teams and knowing that this could be the last year of Marner in Toronto, this thing has amazing juice.
It does, and I just hope it's not like the last time these two met. I remember this vividly, 2004, and that Game 7 with, to be blunt, Joe Nieuwendyk throwing knuckleballs between the pads of Patrick Lalime. Let's just hope that we get 7 games between these two, because the panic in the province will be palpable. But let's have like a better final than that one. Like, look, it's interesting the way that, like, I've always sort of put the cut line at, I think, like 50 years old. So if you're in Toronto, if you're over the age of 50, you think the Toronto Maple Leafs' number one rival is Montreal. If you're under 50, you think their number one rival are either the Ottawa Senators or the Boston Bruins. Probably more Boston right now because they've met in the postseason. But really, like, once this thing gets going, all of a sudden it's going to be rivalry renewed, and it's going to be like the days of Darcy Tucker and the days of Matt Sundin and the days of Daniel Alfredson and the days of Wade Redden, and two teams where the games take 3.5 hours and you spend more time picking up gloves and sticks than anything else. Like, I know I'm sort of having like these sort of like immigrant fantasies about what this is going to be like. Oh, the streets are paved with gold with this Battle of Ontario we haven't seen in so many years, but like this one could be juicy. And of course, like anything that has the wild card of a Tkachuk involved always has the potential to just be, as we like to call it, hockey dumb. There's two kinds of dumb, boys. There's dumb, and then there's hockey dumb. And this thing could get hockey dumb.
I mean, our show exists for the purposes of hockey dumb. Also, Patrick Lalime is a friend, lovely guy.
Not the greatest He's series. An awesome dude. Honestly, I have all the time in the world for Patrick Lalime, and I will never judge him based on 2 lazy wrist shots by Joe Nieuwendyk. But I think most of us look back at that series and go like, that was the game. That was the game 7. Sucks. It was a really good goalie too. Really good goal.
What's your level of pressure for the Leafs heading into this first round series, given the Marner of it all, given the knives and the fantasy offer sheets that are being thrown out there by guys like me every other week?
Real offer sheets, Pete.
Real. Like, how much pressure is there? Especially like the Eastern Conference seems like it's kind of wide open this year.
You know, let me just mention one thing about offer sheets, Pete. You know, everybody says that offer sheets are awesome until it's their guy. You know, it's only a problem when your bull gets gored. You know, it's all of a sudden it becomes an issue. Like when that conversation started happening, and you sort of look at other potential candidates to get offer sheeted. Like there's a couple in Anaheim that if I'm a GM, I'm having a really good look at here. But the Matthew Knies one is interesting because, man, Maple Leafs fans, as you well know, got their backs up about it fast.
Oh yeah.
And offer sheets are this and offer sheets are that, and it's not going to happen. And it's like, you know, there's the old saying, your problem is your problem, but my problem is our problem. All of a sudden, offer sheets take on a whole different tenor when your guy's the target. But if you're any manager, like, how do you not look at, like, this is a compliment, right? Like, how do you not look at someone like Matthew Knies and say, listen, if the Maple Leafs are going to redo Marner and they're going to redo John Tavares here, like the Maple Leafs may be in a situation here where they are vulnerable. But anyhow, parking that aside, it's one thing to lose to the Boston Bruins. It's one thing to lose to the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's one thing to lose to the Florida Panthers. Two of those three teams, are recent Stanley Cup winners. That Atlantic has kind of been like the AL East was for so many years for the Toronto Blue Jays. If I can splash it into MLB territory here, where the Jays could have an amazing season, it didn't matter because the Yankees and the Red Sox were just going to be that much better, and the Blue Jays were just going to have to settle for being third comma again. This has always been the division of killers. Where this gets complicated for the Maple Leafs here is you can't say, well, we lost to a team that went to the Stanley Cup and won, or we lost to this team and the team that beat us went on to become a Stanley Cup finalist, or went 7 games in the conference final. This is a team that's finally getting their first kick at it in the postseason. I would argue there would be less pressure facing off against Tampa or Florida in this situation than there would be facing off against the Ottawa Senators, because you can't rely on it's a veteran team, they know how to win, they've been there before, insert cliche here. This is the Ottawa Senators. No offense to the Ottawa Senators, but nice to have you back in the playoffs, and that's great. I don't know what happens to the Toronto Maple Leafs if they lose to the Ottawa Senators. It's the provincial rival. It's their first time in. There's all the questions and all the ghosts of the playoff failures past that rise up to the surface. This will not, if it goes south for the Maple Leafs, this will not rest well on the shoulders of Keith Pelly. This will not at all. So you want to talk about pressure? You might think to yourself, you know what? It's the Ottawa Senators, not Tampa and Florida. I would say that that's even more pressure for Toronto because they don't have a built-in excuse if they lose.
Well, that's fascinating because you said there's no built-in excuse. There's not really a burn card anymore, right? Like they fired their coach at the end of last season, so they already did that. So if it will not rest well, then where do you go next? Is it leadership in the sweaters?
Well, it's always one of two things, right? It's like whenever you see a situation like, okay, a team's in a difficult spot here, they have to make a decision. The first question you ask yourself, and they're asking this question in New York, and the answer may be both actually, but is this a matter of coaching or composition? Like that's always the first two questions it asks. Like, is it do we have the right players, and do we have the right coach? And to your point being like, yeah, they just went and made the move for Craig Berube last year, who, by the way, can I pause on one point here? Tommy Gorman, Dick Irvin, Scotty Bowman. Those are the only 3 coaches in the history of the NHL that goes back to 1917 to have ever won the Stanley Cup with 2 different teams. That's it. 3. I know it's always, get this guy. He's won the Stanley Cup before. He knows how to win. History tells you, get the newbie. Get the one that hasn't done it before. You have a much better chance because it's only happened 3 times. Now, Scotty did it 3 times. That's why Scotty's the legend and probably the best coach of all time. But Tommy Gorman, Dick Irvin, and Scotty Bowman.
How many of those guys?
I genuinely did not know that.
How many of those guys have done it both times in their first season with their team? Because that would be Berube.
Yeah. That I don't know the answer to that one. But like I'm always amazed with this idea that like I always sort of look skeptically on the rings in the room conversation and they've done it before so they can do it again. Like there's a lot to be said for a bunch of guys that don't know better and really don't know what to expect and just go on vibes and just go on, this is awesome. And they don't have the weight of any history and knowing how hard it is to get there. It's like the lesson from the Rocky movies, right? It's harder to stay on top than get on top, because get on top, you don't know, like you're just fighting and working out and doing your thing. And when you get there, all of a sudden, like everybody is coming for you. Like I'm always impressed with the team that wins the second cup in a row as opposed to the first, because you know what it takes to get there. And you got to say to yourself, okay, I'm ready to go to hell again. And make no mistake about it. You win the Stanley Cup, like those scars, those scars last a long, long time. Physical scars, mental scars, all of it. Like it's tough. That's why repeating is so hard. I'm always impressed with the second one. And again, to the coaches, like it just doesn't happen. Like, I'm sorry, like you have like so much history riding against you if you think the guy that won the Stanley Cup somewhere else is going to bring it to you, because it doesn't happen, guys. It doesn't happen.
Oh, okay. So first of all, I need to note that it is fantastic that our Toronto Maple Leafs playoff preview immediately went to who do they fire when they lose? When they crash and burn. It's we didn't talk about hockey for 1 second, and that wasn't an intentional a-hole thing on any of our parts. It's just where the conversation goes with the Maple Leafs. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
We all silly like the mayor.